All right, what's up, everybody? Hopefully this is working. Can somebody let me know if they can hear me and everything? So what we're doing, we're trying to get this set up so that we can start live streaming the podcast, bring in some more people, get it set up so that we can answer questions in here and stuff. So I'm just kind of trying out some of the software. I don't know if you guys can see the comments. I see some of you guys coming in through YouTube, Periscope. All right, cool. So if you got questions about the Saints, just fire them up. We'll answer those. I got my YouTube order in, so whenever it gets here, I'm going to pop off. But this is what we're trying to do some more of this stuff. You guys have supported the site really, really well so far. So as the more support comes in, trying to invest a little bit more into the infrastructure and some of the stuff we're doing and grow it and try to do more and more things on the Saints. So this is one of them. You know, I like doing the video stuff, connecting with you guys this way. So that's been cool. We got a question about Ted Ginn. All right, let me start with this one. I'm not. So Marshawn, yeah, man. Look, I think that he's healthy. He came back in the game, and then the other side of this, I don't think this was the question you were asking, but look, the way he played in that last game, if he played like that every single game, I wrote this on my site. Like, I honestly believe that he shows Hall of Fame talent in some games, and if he played like that every single game, there would be a real chance of that. You know, the problem with him is that he's got to find that consistency and do it every single week. But look, I was so encouraged by the way that the secondary played. You know, I probably hyped those guys up more than anybody throughout the summer. And, you know, I talked about how the safeties could be the identity of the defense. Obviously, that didn't happen through the first 7 games or whatever. And that was a little bit of a surprise. But I do think that they're going to start rounding into shape. Malcolm Jenkins is playing really well. He's been a tight end eraser, I think, probably for 2 or 3 weeks now. You know, it's just those coverage busts. And it wasn't perfect in this game by any means. There were a couple of them, and David Onyemata saved one with a big quarterback hit. Brady had a guy down the field, and he got there in time. But look, I mean, it's not going to be perfect every game, but when they have both those things working, you know, it can come together and be really good. You know, I don't know if this is how they're going to play every game. I wouldn't necessarily bet on that being the case, that they're all of a sudden the greatest defense ever assembled. But, you know, I do think that they're good enough to get there, and they've showed that. And I think, you know, at this point, we got to stop saying like, well, if they do this, if they do that. Now that they've shown it, you know, they're too good of a team to not hold them to a standard of which every week you're looking at it and you're saying, is this good enough to win a Super Bowl? We saw that performance against a Super Bowl contending team. Now they got to do it every week. So, you know, I was encouraged. What's for lunch? I went to my place, Spitali's. They got a chicken Caesar wrap. You know, I hit that up. It's fine. Nothing exciting. Can the Saints expect to see Kwon against the Niners? I think he's going to start practicing this week. You know, he went through the COVID protocols and everything. The thing is can he pick it up and get the speed? You know, and it doesn't even have to be 50 snaps. The way they're using their linebackers this year, it's pretty scarce. So if he's not ready all the way, you know, that they can still hide some of that with dime. Alex Anzalone's still on the team. So it's not like a pressing issue. I think you want him fully up to speed, you know, come around December. If it takes him a few weeks to get there, that's fine. You know, I do think he's going to make a pretty good difference for this team, though. And I don't mean this, you know, is shade on anybody or anything like that. It's just there's a lot of games you watch, and I think Anzalone's been solid. He's, you know, often in position to make plays and everything. But I don't know if you notice, you know, impact plays beyond Demario Davis from the linebacker group. So I think that's why Kwon's here. The big issue with him, obviously, is the tackles, but I mean his range and ability is unquestioned. You see him get to places on the field that, you know, only Demario's getting, and I think that'll help a lot against like those bootleg plays early in the season they're having issues with, or if they go against, you know, a running back with unique skill set that can get out into the flats and cause some damage that way. So, you know, I do think that that he's going to make a difference. I think that's a good spot to upgrade. I know there was some surprise that they got a linebacker from some quarters, but, you know, I don't think that this team was performing so well that you could look at any position and be like, wow, I can't believe they went there. Like, I think everywhere on defense needed some help or could have gotten help. So that was a spot. I'm excited to see what he can do. I think he can make a difference. And once he gets up to speed, he should be good to go. But I do think he'll start practicing Wednesday. He's coming back from that high ankle sprain. He started practicing in San Fran before he came here. He got out of there right before their COVID outbreak. So, if there's any question about, they've been getting tested, they're going to a new place, why do they got to keep getting tested? Well, you got to make sure that they're safe coming from a new location. So, I think there's a chance that he could play some snaps this week, but if not, I don't think it's the end of the world. Just kind of hit on this one. Is the defensive performance sustainable? Probably not at that level, but I do think that they can play better than they have. Like it was really just a matter of coverage bust. And the thing is like it didn't happen quickly. And I kind of feel like, and I wrote about this on my site a bunch of times, like it was a slow build. It was a slow build up to this performance. There's a code there if you want to get on the site and read some of that stuff. But it was a slow build up to this performance. And started out, they couldn't cover the bootlegs, and then they figured it out. And then it was their cover 3 was busted, and then they figured out how to, play their cover 3 effectively, get the backside fill-ins down the field, things like that. And then the cover 2 was busted, and then they figured out how to, fix the cover 2. They didn't play a ton of straight zone cover 2 in this game, but there was a lot of 2 safety looks and cover 2 man looks. But it was more organized. But you saw this built bit by bit process of them bringing it together and getting it where it needed to be. And eventually it manifested in this performance. Now, there's going to be more coverage busts. There's probably going to be, steps back and then steps forward. But I do think that, a level of competence where you aren't screaming at the TV every time because some guy's running free down the field because they didn't cover right. I think that they can get on the other side of that, and this will become, more of the norm. They probably aren't going to be the number 1 defense in the league, but if they can be a top 10 defense the second half of the season with the way the offense is able to play, I do think that they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And, I don't know if that was ever really in doubt, but I think early in the season there were reasons to question how legitimate that was. But I think they showed who they are, who they can be when the potential comes together. And that performance against the Bucs was good enough to win it all. If they can play anywhere close to that when it matters, they're going to be a very, very hard team to beat. I don't think that there's any injuries per se that are going to pop up this week, but I mean, we'll see on Wednesday. I think some of the stuff that happened, like Lattimore went out, but he came back in, so I don't think that's a major concern. We'll see though. I don't think there's anything to worry about. I think they came out of this one fairly good, but we'll see. It's funny, AJ Klein, when he left, that was weirdly a move that I thought that they might regret later on because he was a settling presence for them. And I think that they have missed him a little bit. I mean, Kwon, I think, will fill that in. But look, I mean, I think DeMario was at his best on the weak side. He's been playing in the middle a little bit more. And I don't think that's going to change too much. There might be some more interchangeability with those guys. One of the things that I think Kwon's presence might bring is the ability to allow DeMario to blitz a little bit more. So that might free him up to do some other things, and you can maybe swap those guys out in different looks and things like that. But in a weird way, I think they do miss AJ Klein. I think they can overcome it, but he is missed a little bit, and I think there are ways that you can see that. So it's interesting that he kind of went without much fanfare, and understandably so, but he was a solid player for this team. I think everybody knew the Saints were going to break out at some point. I mean, the major doubts, I don't know. I just feel like that stuff was unfounded. Like the conversations around this team early in the year were just kind of outrageous to me. The idea that Drew Brees was done after 3 passes in the first game was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. And it was such a widespread talking point. And it's like, well, Michael Thomas isn't playing. When he comes back, that's a big deal. You basically just traded for the best wide receiver in the NFL by adding him back to the team. And I think the talent on the defense, they showed it last year, and they added some guys to it. So it was just a matter of time before it came together. Again, we'll see if it keeps up. I'm not expecting this level, but I think they're going to be better than they have been. But I'm prepared to see them regress and then, let it be a back and forth thing. But it's a veteran team. If they treat this like the Spurs, the San Antonio Spurs, from back in the day, like, and just keep ramping up and ramping up and ramping up and hit their stride come the playoffs, that can be fine. Only one team gets a bye this year. So I think that they have the outright on the tiebreakers right now. I'd have to check that. But like, even if they don't and they end up playing in that first round, it is what it is. And that's all right. But this team, like, coasting a little bit and not being at a stride is still only has 2 losses in a year where I think a lot of teams are struggling and a lot of defenses are bad. I mean, Seattle isn't what they should be. Kansas City, their defense looks suspect. They didn't look great against Carolina this week. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways that things could break for the Saints. And I think a lot of teams have similar struggles. For whatever reason, the national media focused on this team very early in the season, probably because they were playing national games. But, I think they've broken out of that. We see them hitting their stride, and I think it's only going to get better from here. I think that they should just crush the 49ers. I mean, the 49ers don't even have any players left. So if they show up and they take it serious, there's always a game every year where it's just like a team comes out flat. As long as they don't expect just to come out and roll over them because they're going to be playing, I don't know, guys from the XFL. I don't know who's on their team right now because so many players are hurt. But like, as long as the Saints take this game seriously as a serious opponent, they should be able to just roll over them. And I think they've struggled enough that this team shouldn't take anything for granted. I think they're still kind of playing themselves every week and trying to get over their issues. So that's a big thing. But yeah, I mean, they should win this game pretty handily. So Zach Bond, the thing with him, I think that it's unfair to judge him right now. He was a defensive end in college. He's playing off the ball. The offseason was weird. They missed all these practices. They didn't get the on-field time. Figuring that position out on the fly, I think is tough and probably a little bit unfair to ask of him to figure it out as he's going. So it's tough. I mean, there were things in camp where you saw him make good plays and when it clicked, when he had that click and break and the tackling ability, when it all came together in camp, like, it really stood out and it looked good. And there were some really encouraging moments. And then there were other moments where you would see him and it would take, that extra half second to process everything's going on. And that's understandable because you've seen the field from new angles and new places. And, before it was just kind of, you look to the side and it's a flat view of everything. Like, now he's back and has to read angles, which is something he hasn't really done throughout his career. So I don't think you can judge him right now. I think, and look, I know you guys are sick of them drafting quote unquote projects. Like, there's been a lot of projects drafted. The last project, Davenport's working out pretty good, but it takes a while to get there. And, that's a luxury of having a good team where you can get these players. And it turned out that the Saints needed a little bit more immediate help at linebacker than expected. So waiting on Bond, in retrospect, it feels a little bit different now than the idea of having to wait for him when they drafted him. But it's too soon to come to a conclusion. And I know you aren't coming to a conclusion. So I just don't think you can answer this right now. I think it's a year away from having a real answer. It would be nice if they figured it out and he had, some package at least where he's rushing the passer or something. Like, you'd like to see him a little bit more on the field, but I think it's just a situation where you got to have some patience and kind of see how it plays out. And there's traits there. It's just, I think the recognition and the vision and seeing the field right and all that stuff. I think it needs to come together just a little bit more for him. And maybe at some point this year he plays a little bit more than he has, but I think that's just icing on the cake at this point. I'm not expecting anything from him, but I mean, I think just the way this year played out for the whole rookie class, Ruiz got drafted and the idea was for him to be the center, and now he's playing guard and he missed 20 days of camp. And I think you see the struggles there a little bit. I mean, the last 2 weeks, having issues against Hicks and then having issues against Sue and Golston. I mean, it's understandable, but you're a first round pick and you're supposed to hold up. But I just think that it's a tough year for rookie players. I know there's rookies other places playing well. I just think the circumstances for, their top drafted guys have been against them a little bit. And, Trautman's also another project, and he's coming along. It's a little bit slow. It's fine. If he hits his stride, though, I think you see some of the things he can do. So it's a tough year for this rookie class. I think it's a long tail on him, and it's just too soon to really know what any of these guys are going to be. I'm not sure which play are you talking about, the play to Trey Kwon for the touchdown, or another play? If you hit me up, I'll definitely look this up for you. I got a little database I built with all the routes in it and everything, so I can plug in some route info and call up a play from plays going back to, I think it's back to 16. So post that here, send me a DM, I'll look it up for you. Kind of touch on Kwon. I think he's already, I think adding range to the defense is going to make them more dynamic at linebacker. The big issue is his tackling, and I think the nightmare scenario is like him getting out to the flat and then having one of the safeties that have missed some tackles be behind him. But he's going to get there. He just has to tackle a little bit better. I do think his tackling it's ever so slight, but like the rates have gotten a little bit better the last few years. So if he comes in and just adds that range, they have speedy guys that can help cover that up a little bit. But I think he's going to be a dynamic playmaker. When he sees things in the running game, like you see him light guys up. When he doesn't, he doesn't. I think there's a little bit of Patrick Queen to his game in that, he over pursues some stuff, in that, his range is a blessing and a curse at times. There's a reason he was acquired for a 5th round pick and an injured player, though. But I think the positives outweigh the negatives, and I think he's going to be a solid addition for this team. And, at least, if nothing else, like the other linebackers got to earn their snaps now. But I think Kwon's going to come in and be able to take some of those for himself. Is Trey Hendrickson's production due to his talent or the other players around him? I think it's both. I think we've all been doing this. I think we've all kind of like downgraded his production to this point. It's kind of like, oh, well, he's getting this because of that. He's cleaning up. The man's on pace for 15 sacks. Like at this point, that's not a joke. It's serious. It's serious production. He's doing it every time. I know he dominated this left tackle from the Bucs a couple times now and stat padded against him, but that's everybody. Every good defensive end, you look at their production, it comes in bunches and they get a matchup that they're supposed to dominate and they do it. And Hendrickson's making plays in clutch moments and everything. I wouldn't argue that he's better than Davenport or Cam, but like he's doing his job really, really well. He's 3rd in the league in sacks. Even if it slows down, I think it's, I think he could back his way into 10 sacks this season. And that's a huge year. He's going to get paid. I think we got to stop acting like he's this, like, it's this funny thing that he's getting these sacks and that he's, killing it. Like he's having a good season. I think he's refined his game a little bit. You see, some of that stuff coming together, the rush plan, his technique. I think everything's just polished up a little bit. In, his motor's outrageous. It always has been. He's a guy in practice that, his teammates get frustrated with because he practices so hard. But you're seeing that in the game now, that same workman-like quality. And, I don't mean that in a funny way. Like he's like seriously just has like a never quit motor, and he makes some plays based off of that. So, I think his production is a result of him taking advantage of his opportunities. There's other guys that are the so-called 3rd defensive end on a team playing behind other good players who don't have 7.5 sacks right now. So, it's him. We got to start giving them a little bit more credit. Yeah, so his bull rush has been crazy this year. Davenport's bull rush, it's been – I would love to do a study of like the whole league and the pressure rates on bull rushes and everything. I feel he's been using his bull rush on about 20% of his pass rushing snaps. He's pushing the pocket. He did it on the Onyemata interception. His speed to power is unbelievable. The other thing he's doing really, really well this year, and he hadn't done it so well in the past, is he's winning on the inside with inside moves, which just kind of shows a little bit of his like refinement. Like Boylan I wrote an article about this that gets a little bit more in detail, but like the broad strokes of it is like before it was basically either he was winning with power or he was just running to the outside and like winning with speed. And you see it now that like he's setting guys up with like outside moves and crossing them up, going to the inside. And there's just a plan, and he's winning various ways and wherever he can create an advantage. And it's just, if you watch his rookie year and you put on any game of this year, like you're just going to see a player that you can just tell mentally he knows what he's doing and he's setting it up now. And it's not just speed, power, instinct. Like there's a plan, and it's working really, really well for him. And, you know, I think his return to the defensive line and seeing everybody's play tick up, them getting more pressure, it's not a coincidence. I would not say that their issues playing zone are all solved now. I don't think it's all good. There were a couple busts in this game. They played more man concepts in this game. There's a lot of cover 4, but you can play press man within that, which they did. You know, the straight zone stuff, we'll see. I mean, it wasn't a ton of it. It was more organized. I'm going to need to see more than one game to believe. You know, all it takes is one bust and for the quarterback to get the pass off to the right guy for the progress to look like it's been, you know, completely, it's gone. For it to look like it's gone. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm encouraged by the process. As I said earlier in this, like you see the bit by bit, they fixed little things each week. There'll probably be step backs and more steps forward. You know, it's going to be a process getting to where they need to be, but I do believe that they can get to where they need to be. I'm interested to see how Trautman ends up getting used the rest of the year. You see progress. You see progress with him. I think like in the 2-minute and the 4-minute, I kind of feel like that's a spot where he could do a lot of damage down in the red zone, stuff like that. You know, I think his blocking in that would need to become more consistent. You know, to take Jared Cook off the field for Trautman, I think is a stretch, but I think that there's ways to figure out how to use him more and more as he earns more snaps. You know, they can use more 12 personnel, 13 personnel. You saw some plays of 13, even on the first drive in this game. So there's ways to get him on the field and execute those route concepts. So as he's earning those snaps, they can find ways to use them. I don't know if he's going to start, you know, pushing anybody yet, but he is on the right track. And, you know, as a project, a guy that came from a very low level of college football to be where he's at now, scoring touchdowns. That route he ran, it was a double move on the touchdown. Brees' pass was outstanding, but the route was outstanding too. So, I mean, you see him becoming more detailed, more on point. And as that plays out, they'll find ways to get him the ball. That's one of the great things about the way Brees plays quarterback is that he's going to keep giving guys chances to prove themselves. If they're on the field, he's going to trust that they're going to do it. He'll throw him the ball. If they make a mistake, he's not going to lose faith. So as long as he keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to get more snaps. He'll get more targets. I think that the wide receivers, I think this is probably, I don't want to make a comparison to the glory years or anything like that, but the last 4, 5, 6 years, like if 16 when they had Willie Snead, Cooks, Michael Thomas, I would take this group of wide receivers over those guys. I think these guys better fit. Those guys might have been more talented overall, but like maybe not. But either way, I think the talent of this roster fits Brees better than the talent of that roster. And there's a reason the offense, they traded Cooks after 16 and then changed some elements of the offense to make it more condensed and all that stuff. But I do think that the talent of this team fits Brees much better. And there's guys coming from everywhere. I mean, I'm not going to call like the other players weapons, but they're reliable targets. Callaway's proven himself to be someone that can fit in and consistently contribute. Traquan Smith is going to, you know, make his plays and do what he does. Make tough catches when called upon. Deontay Harris is starting to look like a serious weapon, a very good change of pace player. His balance is crazy. He can do some stuff in traffic when he gets the ball, and he's coming together really, really well. His route running is so detailed, and the way he sets people up is crazy. Like if he was a few inches taller with his talent and his skill set, oh my God. But like even at his stature, the way he's playing, he is a serious weapon, and they can find ways to get him the ball. And the fact that he's running traditional receiver routes and making plays, I mean, he's a very, very solid player. And the setup of weapons around them, not being without Mike, figuring out how to use some of these guys, Man, like their offense can be really good. It's very diversified. I think once we get to the end of the season and we look back and just kind of do the comparison of target distribution and all that stuff and the weapons, the comparison from last year to this year, it's going to be night and day. And it's not just because of getting Emmanuel Sanders, like, finding Callaway, that's a huge credit to the scouting staff. I think Kwon has been forced to find confidence in himself, in his ability, and that's going to pay off and continue to pay off. So there's just a lot of little weird hidden benefits to Mike not playing. You would have rather had Mike on the field, but I think it helps out long term. And I'm someone like I saw people saying that very early when Mike went out. Oh, well, Drew's going to figure out how to do all this other stuff and it's going to be better. And I rolled my eyes at it. Like, are you kidding me? You're taking the best player off the field? That can't be a good thing. But there are, in hindsight, there are a lot of hidden benefits to it. So I think they're going to be a better team down the stretch because of it. And yeah, the group of weapons, I think, are going to be very good. And that's going to help, with Brees' aging process as he continues to move forward. I want to see Tom Montgomery get involved because he had so many huge plays in training camp. And I need him to make like 3 or 4 to justify the hype that I put on this guy throughout camp. So get Ty on the field, get Ty the ball, let him make some plays. Like, there needs to be a payoff for all these big plays he made during camp and all the hype around them. It's a good question. I don't know if him taking risks is the best thing in the world. Like, I think Brees being disciplined and controlled is a good thing for this team, but you don't want that to become a detriment either. Like, you need to take some risks here and there. I think as they trust the defense a little bit more, like maybe you can take a little bit more, a few more risks with the ball down the field and trying to fit it in the tight windows. Look, that pass to Trautman was even a little bit risky. He laced it between 2 guys, but I think that's a good sign for how his arm feels. He's listed with the shoulder injury. Earlier in the year, there was all the talk about him having issues and not throwing the ball down the field and all this stuff. And he still didn't really go down the field in this game. I think there was only 1 pass over 20 yards, but you're right that he was like trying to fit it in the tight windows a little bit more and things like that. And I think that is a positive trend for him in the offense. Like, like I said, you don't want it to be too conservative. I don't think they need to play too risky. They can score points thinking and dunking, even if, that's going to have people screaming about air yards or whatever else. So maybe a slight trend. I don't think that's where you want your offense to go, but you want some of it. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I just think with the receiver talent too and the trust level in those guys, you're going to see a little bit, a little bit more chance. And when Brees is flowing a little bit, he starts feeling himself and he makes those plays every now and then too. So we'll see. It's a good question. I feel like they got a good flow going right now, and Davenport coming in and giving them quality snaps helps. I mean, there might be something to him only playing X amount of snaps. It was interesting because, like, even with Cam, I think once Cam got below 90% of the snaps, he used to play a ton of them early in his career, 90%, 95%, every year. Once he got below 90, I feel like his quality per snap and his overall production started going up. So I think if you pick your spots with Davenport, it could help a lot, but 50%, I don't know. I feel like what they're doing works well. I think he could play a little bit more than he has. And I like seeing him in there. I would like to see all 3 of them in there actually more often. And, I think Davenport would be the guy that I would throw at DT, believe it or not. I don't think I'd put Cam in there in that type of package, but I would like to see all 3 of those guys playing a little bit more together. So maybe they'll figure that out as they go along. I think that there's an element of getting Davenport back up to speed after missing so much time too, and being smart about it and not causing risk for re-injury or anything like that. He's such an integral part of this team that they need to make sure that he's healthy and upright at the end of the season. So it's kind of crazy how much he's ascended, Davenport, so quickly that we're legitimately kind of talking about him like he's the most important player on defense as far as their success. And I don't know if that's true like in a black and white sense, but you start throwing shades of gray and seeing the impact of other players. His presence is hugely important for this team. Quality versus not quality. I don't know, Greg. You take a lot of players out of there, and I don't know. I think we aren't going to see the high flying shootout. I don't think that we're going to see the quality of players. I don't think anyone's going to be missing tackles on tight ends and the tight end running 80 yards down the field. I think the Saints should go in there and smoke them, but we'll see. We'll see. David Onyemata is not the best Saints draft pick ever. Marcus Colston is the best Saints draft pick ever. Onyemata is good though. If you made the statement a year ago, you might have looked crazy. Saying it now, it's a little bit more feasible. But he's definitely not the best Saints draft pick ever. I mean, 4th round pick. He played well, got a second contract. I think he's having an outstanding season. His success on the defensive line, to the defensive line as a group. I mean, it's huge. I mean, he's a huge part of that. So like. He's the contract when they signed him to that. I was like, wow, that's an expensive contract for him. Other people in the league saw the value. They were after him too. I was still surprised by what he got paid, but I think now you see it, and the fact that he's playing more, I think is going to help them. He's really stepping up with Rankins out right now. This last game, he had 8 pressures, some very, very key plays in that game. But look, I mean, like a 4th round pick, Alvin's a 3rd round pick. Alvin's a better draft pick than Onyemata. Colston is the greatest value. I'm not even sure where Onyemata ranks in the conversation. He's in there somewhere, but it's not in the top half of the top 10. I don't think we'd have to rank that out. He's somewhere in there, but no. Do you think the position? This is. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, were they like trying to do too much to guys in the secondary with the positionless football and some of the stuff? Yeah, I mean, I think that there's just something elemental about the communication overall to the defense that wasn't there. I wish we had open locker room because, I mean, like one of the things I would have been going around asking people is like how key Von Bell was to that communication. It's weird to think about him in that role, but like, was there an element of him in the communication? And he might not be. It might just be, no, he's not. He's not one of the big communicators. But there was something that happened that caused the communication to break down and have all these busts. And like, one of the things they're doing this year compared to other years, they're playing more cover 4. That started last year too, but there weren't those busts in it. And that's one of the weird things. But yeah, I mean, I think trying to bring in, you bring in Malcolm Jenkins. PJ was playing more early in the season. Week 1, they played a ton of dime, so he was out there a lot. I just think there were a lot of moving parts, and Jenkins Janoris Jenkins is also kind of a new player, even though he got here late last year. So maybe we weren't looking at the changeover enough in that group, in the potential for these coverage busts and chemistry issues and all that stuff with these players. So. Yeah, but I mean, I think that they figured it out a little bit. It just took a little bit to get there. And then you had injuries, and then P-Rob's playing on the outside, and it was just a lot of turnover and a lot of moving parts that probably weren't looked at properly by people like me during the offseason. Like we were looking at the highlights and everything that could go right, and not like, okay, training camp, sterile environment, you're making these plays, you know what you're doing, you kind of know what the offense is going to do. And we weren't looking at it like, okay, well, what happens when they got to make a change? And, it's the first time they're hearing this from Malcolm, or it's the first time Janoris Jenkins is hearing this, or PJ's out there in a new position. So, I think that was probably a failing on the evaluation, but the talent is there. I do believe they're going to get there. And, I think the team was surprised by some of the issues as well, but they're figuring it out. And that's kind of the important thing right here. Look, just being real, I think Nick Easton has played better. I think you have to keep trying to find ways to get Ruiz on the field, give him opportunities. I think his ceiling is much, much higher, and if he figures it out, your offensive line is much better. But I think Easton is the more consistent player. So I'm not opposed to them going into a game like the last one, trying out Ruiz, seeing how it goes, and if it goes bad, making the switch. Easton's shown the ability to kind of come in a pinch and give you that high level. So if that's the approach they take, I don't think it's damaging to the team or anything like that. I think you can make those switches pretty easily, but I think it's pretty clear that that there's one guy that's playing a little bit better than the other. I'm going to answer like 4 more of these, and then I'm out. I appreciate you guys coming through and getting this sorted out for us too. Like I said, we plan on live streaming the podcast, and I plan on doing some more of this stuff too throughout. I like talking to you guys showing up, asking questions, all that stuff. I appreciate it. So I like that we got this figured out. But yeah, I'm gonna answer like 5 more of these, and then I got to get rolling. Trying to find a couple that we haven't. Hey, Big Fish is my guy, Trautman. You got to call him Big Fish. We got to get that moving. So I think Taysom has opportunities to pass the ball. I think there's just a lot of times he reads the field. Like there was the 20-yard game like that looked like a design pass, but then he saw the safety playing about 15 yards, 20 yards deep. He had a lane. He only had to beat one guy, and then it was green light. And that play was set up earlier in the game by the when they were playing cover 0. He hit that pass on the to Cook, the all go special X cross, 52 all go special X cross. So he hit that pass down the field, and they didn't have a safety back because they were cheating up because the tendency was run. Saints broke tendency, ran this play, and then you got the safety move back. But I mean, I think the importance of passing the ball is right there in that play, and you have to find ways for him to throw the ball, even if there's not a great read. I think that he needs to know that like if he throws the ball, it's going to open it up for other things to happen, and you saw that happen in this game. And when it does, he can punish people for it. So they gotta, if they're going to use him, they gotta have him throwing the ball. His role's got to be more varied. I like when things aren't going well with Taysom, I don't sit there and I'm like, like they shouldn't do this. This is dumb. Move on. Like the thing that I think they need to do with Taysom is use him more. And when he's being used a lot, you see things go well for him, and it opens things up. So he's a weapon for the team when things are going well, when they're using him well, when the plan's working. It's just a matter of making sure it's working. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a deep pass. Like I think he just needs to go out and hit like some intermediate passes, because then your linebackers just can't cheat on running. They got to, respect those shallow zones and all that stuff. So if he can throw the ball every now and then and punish teams, it's going to open other things up. I would like to see Lattimore. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some games in the second half of the season that just inherently, just by the way he approaches his opponents, that you're going to see him play well. Like I think he's going to have good games against Julio. Tyreek Hill, I think, is a game where he's going to feel like he wants to prove himself. So I think just based on the virtue of the opponents, that you're going to see him play his best in a handful of games. And look, if he does, like if he could just find that consistency, I think he could be like such an incredible player. He's locking down his side of the field in this game, and it allows them to bracket the slot, against Godwin. And in other games, like they didn't do that. And if you know Lattimore is just going to hold it down over there, and you still got to give him a little help every now and then. But like if he's going to hold it down, it allows you to roll your coverage the other way a little bit, and there you go. Like that's just one benefit right there, and that helped with the whole passing attack. So if he can just lock in and be 85% of what he was against the Bucs every week, man, this defense is going to be so good. But I do think that he's gonna have a good second half of the season. I think it was a weird first half of the season for a lot of people. I'm not locked into any judgments on anyone. I've kind of said a lot of places that I viewed the first 7 games of the season as an extended preseason. I think moving forward from here is where I'm going to form my opinions on everybody. And a lot of guys got off to slow starts. I feel like Cam Jordan, the sack production hasn't quite been there, but I think his film is solid, and he looks very much like himself in various moments. He ended the game before this one, down the stretch. He had 4 pressures, I think, on that last drive in the fourth quarter. He had some pressures in this game, created a sack. So he's starting to bring it up too. So I feel like going forward from here is where we should start the evaluation process of everybody. Hey, man, I'll take it 10 out of 10. We put some work. We got some lights too. Don't got the lights on though. I don't really know where they would have added anyone else before the deadline. Like if you bring in a corner, you got to dumb down your coverage schemes, and I don't feel like talent's the issue at corner. I feel like the execution has been. So if you're gonna water it down and just play a couple things, like you might as well just do that with the talent you have and keep your assets. But I think they're better if they just keep working with these guys and getting them to execute all the schemes and everything. I don't think the play calls or the scheme has been the issue. It's been the execution within it. Like playing cover two and a guy not covering cover two, like that's not being too complex or complicated or anything like that. You just got to get guys on the same page. So, if they brought in a corner, like they would have had to bring it down. If you could have added a safety, I could have seen that. You could have sold me on a safety, especially like somebody long term. If you're bringing them in and that's where you want to go with it, and somebody long term isn't in your plans, and you just kind of get a head start on that, sure. But like I think the players they have there can get it done. So, I mean, there's a lot of spots where like you could have added someone, but I don't feel like there was like, oh, they had to do this. Like, oh, I can't believe they didn't do this. Offensively, I feel like they're set. The secondary, I feel like they can be set if they figure it out. Defensive line, if you could have added somebody, sure, but like, who's your difference maker that's going to be better than what you have? I just don't think that player was out there. So, yeah, I mean, I think I'm okay with how the team looks going down, basically with who was available. I think they made a move that was fine for them, gives them a little upgrade. I don't know if it's the move that changes the whole outlook of your season, but I think he solidifies things a little bit and addresses a spot where you could maybe get a little bit more dynamic play from. Grabbing two more. I mean, we saw the game. You saw the game on Sunday. I mean, honestly, I think if you gave, I don't know. I mean, there's things that I think Brady does down the field maybe a little bit better, but I think Brees, I don't know. I would go with Brees. I honestly would go with Brees right now. And I don't know if my evaluation is fair, because I watched the Patriots last year and I thought Brady had a rough season. And I thought some of his issues extended beyond the players around him. And I think it's a fair comparison up until this week to say the guys playing with Brees were comparable to the guys playing with Brady last year. Although Brees has Alvin, which, puts things way over the top. James White isn't a bad receiving option. But like, even if we just isolate the wide receivers versus wide receivers, I think that the guys, so Brady got one game of Antonio Brown last year. Brees had one game of Mike Thomas earlier. I think that the lack of weapons, like if you isolate it and you kind of compare those two, I think Brees played better than Brady did last year through the first 7 games overall. I mean, there was a stretch last year where Brady was like under 50% passing. Brees is at like 70-some%. Granted, Brady threw the ball down the field a little bit more last year than Brees did, but I don't know if I'm putting too much weight on that. If the system last year was bad on him and he's drastically played different, I'm not watching the Bucs every week. I've seen 2 games. One was thoroughly unimpressive. The first one was fine. But he has a ton of players around him now. And like, I don't know, if you gave Brees those guys for the first 7 games of the season, I mean, are we having these conversations about where he's at in his career or anything like that? So I take Brees right now. I think he can execute the offense that needs to be executed well. I don't know. I mean, I'm not worried about it. I think he's playing well. I think last year Brees greatly outplayed Brady, and I don't know. Like I haven't watched Tampa Bay enough, but I just feel like, honestly, like if I had to pick one to run the Saints offense, I would pick Brees. Like that would be the guy. And I just don't think that the conversations around Brees, honestly, like You're taking out the best receiver from a 41-year-old quarterback who is who he is. Like, we know who he is. We know he isn't necessarily, the slinger from 2011 anymore. He did show a few weeks ago against Carolina that he still has the ability to make other players better and uplift them. So that's an important trait. I didn't know if he could still do that, but I don't know. At this point in their careers, like, if we're talking like who's going to be playing in 5 years, like, I think Brady's insane enough to keep trying to play, and I think he can probably maintain a level that's reasonable for quite a while. I don't know if Brees wants to play 5 more years or whatever, but one season right now to run the Saints, and I kind of feel like that might have been something that could have played out if Brees walked away. But no, I think you're better off with the guy you have for this team. Rankins is a tough one to. I mean, what's the value? Like, if you can get him back on like a 1-year deal to prove he's healthy, to have the season that he can have, and you can bring him back for that, yeah, I would. I mean, being honest, I would have trouble committing to him long term, beyond a year. But if I could get him back for 1 year, where it's like, hey, come back, show what you can do, rehabilitate, bring him in. Yeah, I think he's a good addition to the team. Man, the Manitoba Mauler's killing it, though. He really is. But I would bring Rankins back at the right price. I mean, there are cap considerations next year and all that stuff, but with the injuries, I don't think he's had the production that he'd like to have. There were moments. So depending on how things play out, we'll see. But at the right price, yeah, but I wouldn't extend myself for him. I'm going to find one more, just scrolling randomly here. There you go. And then with Hendrickson, do you think the Saints try to keep Hendrickson next year? I don't think anyone expects him to be as productive as he has. Look, this man might get himself paid. Seriously, like, if he gets 10, 11 sacks, there's players like this. Like, Kyle Van Noy went out and got paid, and I think Hendrickson's having a better season than he did. So I did not expect Trey Hendrickson to be a tough decision contractually. Like, I figured he'd be a solid guy. You could bring him back at the right price. If not, you let him go. Like, he's proven to be an important piece to this defense. Probably the most unexpected storyline of the year. I didn't expect this at all. So it's going to be, it's going to be interesting to see what his market looks like. But I think somebody's going to come for him. I do, and I think you probably let him go. And man, that draft class is so incredible. The fact that he's now contributing just adds to it on top. But look, I mean, if you're developing players and they go somewhere else, they get paid, they have a good season for that other team, they play a lot, that's how you get yourself comp picks. And that's a sign of having a healthy organization, good drafting, good scouting, all that stuff. So, it's a good thing to have these decisions to make. For a while there, things are so barren. And now you're kind of seeing like the fruits of the labor of the revamped college scouting staff. These guys coming together, developing, pricing out eventually. That's the fruits of the labor. Now you get more picks back, you get a comp pick, and you just keep, rebuilding like that and refilling the cabinet. So, that's what happens. But I'm going to wrap it up there. I appreciate you guys coming through. I'm glad this worked. We'll do this more often. We're going to live stream the podcast tonight. If you guys want to watch it, that's how we're going to do it every week now that we see that this works. And if you aren't signed up to the site already, there's a code there, $10 off an annual plan. Any support you guys do, like I said at the beginning, the support on the site's been incredible. More people that sign up, the more stuff I can do. I can keep investing, finding different ways to create content, reach you guys, do more, all that stuff. So, when I started the site, like I said, it wasn't about getting rich. The money we're making, like, I want to put back into it and just create the best Saints experience for you guys. I love covering this team for you guys, for the city, all that stuff. So appreciate it. Thanks for showing up for this. And again, the podcast tonight, keep reading and Have a good one.